On this Wednesday night, violent threats thwarted. The teenagers accused of plotting attacks on schools in 2 provinces.
We received information that the youth was already on the bus, so we had pulled the bus over.
How Canadian police were tipped off by the FBI and Interpol. Airstrikes targeting energy infrastructure in the Middle East. The escalating tensions as Israel assassinates the head of Iran's intelligence. New charges in this deadly fire at a Montreal building filled with illegal Airbnbs, what the owner is accused of. Plus, shine bright like a diamond. Venezuela's jubilation after defeating the U.S. to nab an historic baseball victory.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Police in Nova Scotia say they've stopped potentially violent attacks at 2 schools in different parts of the country. Authorities say 2 teenagers were arrested after their online conversations were intercepted by the FBI and Interpol. It's alleged they were discussing staging simultaneous attacks on a high school in Bridgewater, Nova Scotia, and a collegiate thousands of kilometers away in a small town near Brandon, Manitoba. Police don't believe the attacks were imminent. But after the shootings at the school in Tumbler Ridge, BC, where the suspect's concerning activity on ChatGPT was not flagged to the police, this time authorities intervened before any attack could happen. Marney Blunt has our top story on what police found and what they say the teens were plotting. Marney.
Donna, a 14-year-old from Rivers, Manitoba, and a 15-year-old from Bridgewater, Nova Scotia, are now in custody.
Police in both provinces allege the 2 were planning to harm other students through plotting violent attacks at Rivers Collegiate and at Parkview Education Centre in Bridgewater. The Bridgewater Police Service and Manitoba RCMP say online conversations on the simultaneous attacks began in late February. Police say the FBI and Interpol alerted them to online activity between the 2 teens on Friday.
They were both at the early planning stages of school attacks in their home communities. No firearms were located at our search.
But other items were found when police searched the teens' Bridgewater home, including handwritten plans, imitation weapons, a roughly made imitation pipe bomb and assault rifle, electronic devices, and clothing with hate symbols. That youth was arrested Tuesday and appeared in court on Wednesday. RCMP in Manitoba say the other teen was arrested on board a school bus Monday.
We pulled over the school bus. We wanted to intercept the youth prior to him attending school, and so we heard we received information that the youth was already on the bus, so we had pulled the bus over.
2 properties associated with the teen were searched and 2 firearms owned by a family member were seized. Police say the incidents are alarming to the close-knit communities.
There's always a little fear that other world problems can come to a community like this. The world is shrunk with internet access and computer ability, and you see some of the problems in a smaller community that you wouldn't have seen years ago.
The Nova Scotia teen is facing charges of conspiracy to commit murder and uttering death threats, while the Manitoba team is only facing charges of uttering threats. However, police in both provinces say more charges are possible as the investigation continues, including for hate crime-related offences. Donna?
Okay, Marney Blunt in Winnipeg, thank you. Now to the war in Iran. There are signs of it widening further. Iranian drones and missiles targeted major energy facilities in Qatar and Saudi Arabia tonight. The price of oil has spiked again. A barrel of Brent crude rose to over $110 US today. Israel has attacked Iran's largest natural gas field, cutting off all exports of gas to Iraq, which relies on it for power. And Israel also assassinated another senior leader, this time Iran's head of intelligence. Tonight, Iran's supreme leader said Israel will pay. Redmond Shannon reports.
South Pars is the largest natural gas field in the world, split between Iran and Qatar. Iran says it was targeted by airstrikes overnight, reportedly by Israel. Iran's president warning of consequences beyond control. And Qatar accused Israel of a dangerous and irresponsible step that threatens global energy security. In response, Iran advised citizens near 5 oil and gas facilities in US allied Gulf states, including Qatar, to evacuate. And on Wednesday night, Qatar reported major damage from a missile attack at a refinery. Saudi Arabia also said it intercepted ballistic missiles. The price of oil has spiked again amid the tensions, and as the Gulf remains closed off for energy exports to nations Iran sees as allied with the US and Israel.
We all agree, of course, that Strait has to open up again. And what I know is that allies are working together, discussing how to do that.
US allies have so far refused White House requests for help to open up the Strait of Hormuz. Overnight, the US military says it struck Iranian missile sites along the strait.
The United States military has a lot of capabilities, as you have seen play out over the last 18 days. And they still do have tricks up their sleeve.
Early Wednesday, Iranian cluster bombs rained down near Tel Aviv. Some intercepted, but not all. 2 70-year-old residents killed when they failed to get to a safe room in time.
This is a war crime by the Iranian regime, both targeting the civilians, both using this indiscriminate type of firing towards civilians.
In Iran, funerals for Iranian sailors and 2 top security officials killed by an Israeli airstrike. Hours later, Iran confirmed Israel had since also killed Intelligence Minister Esmail Khatib. On Wednesday, the Canadian government advised Canadians in the Middle East to leave now if it is safe to do so. It says the government's ability to help may be limited if the conflict escalates. Donna?
All right, Redmond Shannon in London, thank you. Canadians have been advised to avoid all travel to Lebanon as Israel's military pushes forward with its ground incursion and fires more airstrikes into the capital, Beirut. Israel says its goal is to eliminate Hezbollah, Iran's proxy force, which has been attacking Israel. According to Lebanon's health ministry, more than 900 people have been killed since March 2nd. Heidi Petrachuk reports on the people caught in the crossfire.
Eyewitness video captures the moment an apartment building near downtown Beirut is hit and collapses in an airstrike. This shortly after Israeli military issued a warning saying they intended to target a building they say is an asset of Hezbollah. Intense explosions also rocked Hezbollah-controlled southern suburbs overnight. Since attacks erupted at the beginning of March in Lebanon, local officials say hundreds have been killed, including children.
It's hard to watch.
Christina L. Chater usually travels from Halifax to Lebanon every summer to see friends and family. The war hits close to home.
If you're talking to them late at night, they'll be like, oh, they just started shooting. They're getting knocks at the door in the middle of the night, telling them, like, you have to flee now, or can we live here because they're going to bomb our city right now.
Volunteers in Beirut have been preparing meals for the 1 million people driven from their homes. More than 130,000 are in makeshift shelters.
People are leaving within a few seconds their houses, and then when they reach safer destinations, they have absolutely nothing, no money, no food.
The unfortunate thing is we've gone through this before.
Wadif Faris is one of 4 honorary consuls of Lebanon in Canada.
Some of us have families in the war zone, so we're making sure that we reach out to them to see if they need anything.
Lebanese Canadians imploring Ottawa to push for peace.
I think when it comes to the Canadian government, and I see that they're working together with other Europeans, is really stop the war, okay?
We continue praying for Lebanon.
When Al Chater was 6, a family trip to Lebanon turned into an evacuation when the 2006 Lebanon war erupted. She remembers fleeing by boat to Cyprus. She wishes her homeland wasn't caught in violence yet again. Heidi Petrachuk, Global News, Halifax.
President Trump says that he doesn't want war with Iran, but that's exactly what he wants.
That is Tulsi Gabbard in 2020. When she was a Democratic congresswoman, she accused Donald Trump of wanting to drag the U.S. into a war with Iran.
That's what he puts first, not America.
Fast forward, and Gabbard is now Trump's director of national intelligence. And today she found herself in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee answering some uncomfortable questions about a war she once opposed. Jackson Prosco reports.
For President Donald Trump, there's no escaping the growing toll of the war. He oversaw the return of 6 more fallen Americans to U.S. soil on a day when oil prices soared higher and allies again came under attack. He remains insistent it's a price he's willing to pay.
Iran was a threat. Every country realized what a threat Iran was.
3 weeks into the war, there's still no evidence to back that claim.
Iran's strategic position has been significantly degraded.
In Washington, leaders of U.S. intelligence agencies sidestepped when asked if they believed Iran posed an imminent threat.
It is not the intelligence community's responsibility to determine what is and is not an imminent threat.
Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, a longtime skeptic of war with Iran, would not say if she agreed with the president's rationale for striking first.
Was it the assessment of the intelligence community that there was a, quote, imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime, yes or no?
Senator, the only person who can determine what is and is not an imminent threat is the president.
Did you brief the president if he starts a war of choice, that the likely result would be that Iran would strike adjacent Gulf nations and close the Strait of Hormuz?
Those of us within the intelligence community continue to provide the president with all of the best objective intelligence available to inform his decisions.
The CIA director was less evasive, but remained vague about how imminent the risk was.
If left unimpeded, yes, Senator, they would have the ability to range missiles to the continental U.S.
For now, Trump seems willing to own his decision. The greater the cost of the war, the more he may find himself alone. In fact, in her written statement to Congress, Tulsi Gabbard seemed to contradict the president. She said Iran's nuclear program had been obliterated by last summer's strikes and that the country was making no effort to rebuild it. But Donna, she refused to make those statements on camera in a place where Trump might have heard them.
Okay, Jackson Prosco in Washington, thanks. The Bank of Canada kept its key interest rate steady today, as expected, though the bank's governor warns the U.S. and Israeli war in Iran is forcing the bank into an uncomfortable balancing act between rising prices and a weakening economy. Mackenzie Gray explains.
If oil prices stay high...
After thinking he'd won the fight with this bout of inflation, Tiff Macklem's old foe is making a comeback.
The war in Iran is causing oil prices to move sharply higher, and this will push inflation up in the near term.
The new inflation worry comes after it stayed within the central bank's target of 2% for over a year. They're in part thanks to low gas prices, which are now set to increase, impacting all sectors of the economy, including already high food prices.
We import a lot of our fresh foods, so transportation costs add to food costs.
If the war drags on, Macklem says he's willing to intervene.
If energy prices stay high and we start to see evidence that it is generalizing and becoming more persistent, we can raise the policy interest rate to cool inflation.
As far as central bankers go, that's tough talk, trying to project that the bank has learned lessons from 2022 when they raised rates to crush inflation. A move they didn't repeat on Wednesday, holding rates at 2.25%, a part of what they're calling a dilemma. If they raise rates to deal with oil-induced inflation, it could hurt a fragile economy smacked by tariffs and trade uncertainty with the U.S.
Higher tariffs have weakened the Canadian economy. That will put some downward pressure on inflation.
That weakness seen with the Canadian economy shrinking in late 2025 and losing 100,000 jobs so far this year, a circumstance that would normally elicit a conversation for an interest rate cut.
Along comes another war in the Middle East and an oil price spike, and lo and behold, we know inflation is going to shoot up in the coming months.
Governments and businesses could stand to see increased revenue if the war in Iran keeps resources prices elevated, Donna. But that upside would give little solace for Canadians who will face higher prices and for the Bank of Canada, squeezed between a weak economy and higher inflation.
All right, Mackenzie Gray, thank you. It's taken 3 years for Montreal police to lay charges in this deadly fire. Coming up, what the owner is accused of. 3 years after a fire tore through a heritage building in Old Montreal, the owner has been charged with multiple offenses, including 7 counts of involuntary manslaughter. There were illegal Airbnbs in the building, and 6 other people were injured. The fire led to tighter restrictions on short-term rentals, but as Touria Izri reports, no one had been charged until now.
A century-old building in Old Montreal transformed into an instant death trap. For 3 long years, the families and the city searched for answers and accountability.
We hope that this development will, to some extent, alleviate their suffering.
Police arrested 63-year-old building owner Emile Benamor, laying more than a dozen charges against him.
Mr. Benamor is facing 15 counts, 7 counts of manslaughter, and 8 counts of criminal negligence causing bodily harm.
Benamor, a lawyer and businessman, owned the heritage building that went up in flames. The fire erupted with 22 people inside, many of them staying in illegal Airbnbs like this one, which had no windows. 7 people between the ages of 18 and 76 died, including Nathan Sears, a University of Toronto student visiting the city. In a statement to Global News, his friend and PhD supervisor said thinking about the egregious violations and negligence is especially difficult. Police say Benamor did not set the fire, but his alleged negligence allowed it to spread so quickly. The tragedy led to sweeping changes in Quebec, including tighter restrictions on short-term rentals. Montreal police faced questions as to why it took them so long to act.
The complexity of the case made it a bit longer. The necessity to consult with experts.
Benamor appeared in court Wednesday and was released on $100,000 bail. None of the allegations against him have been proven in court. A memorial was put up to mark the 3rd anniversary of the tragedy. A separate investigation is underway into who started the fire. Investigators discovered accelerants at the scene, but so far, no arrests have been made. Touria Izri, Global News, Montreal.
Ahead, Alberta tightens the rules around medical assistance in dying. The Alberta government intends to put tighter restrictions on who can access medical assistance in dying. Federal laws already restrict access, but Alberta's premier believes those federal safeguards are weakening, and she needs to do more to protect vulnerable groups. Heather Yurix-West explains the changes and whether the province will be able to implement them.
Tanya Stilson describes the day she said goodbye to her father as difficult and sad, but says his death was also beautiful because it was within his control.
We really believed that he made the careful decision, as one does.
The 83-year-old had suffered from a painful 12-year illness. His death wasn't considered reasonably foreseeable. Therefore, he only qualified under what's known as Track 2 MAID, a provision allowed since 2019 when a Quebec court ruled denying MAID to people with grievous and irremediable medical conditions violated their charter rights.
We believe MAID must be a compassionate option reserved only for those who will not recover from terminal illness.
Under legislation tabled by the Alberta government, only patients whose natural death is deemed to be reasonably foreseeable within the next 12 months will be allowed.
Track 2 was established because of the Truchon case, which is actually held in the Quebec Superior Court. The federal government at the time opted not to appeal to the Supreme Court.
Which is why Alberta's Justice Minister believes his province now has the legal ability to prevent Track 2 MAID approvals moving forward.
We're always prepared for any legal challenge. We think that this bill finds the appropriate balance.
Though the legislation has not invoked the notwithstanding clause, the Premier has not ruled out using it to protect the law if challenged in court.
We believe it's unconstitutional as questioning the constitutional authority of the federal government. We have not yet had time to consult with legal counsel and determine what paths we have forward, but we will certainly be doing that.
I would be devastated for families and for Albertans. I think we're focusing on the very wrong thing.
Stilson believes MAID saved her father from what she believed would have been a death filled with suffering and pain. She worries Alberta's government is making a mistake. Heather Yurix-West, Global News, Calgary.
They are the champions. Next, Venezuela's historic baseball victory over the United States. In just over a week, it is opening day of the Major League Baseball season, but fans of the game have already been treated to some thrilling moments. In Miami on Tuesday night, Venezuela defeated the U.S. to win that country's first World Baseball Classic title. As Eric Sorensen reports, it was a big moment for the sport and an even bigger moment for the people of Venezuela, whose president was captured by U.S. forces in January.
For the powerhouse Americans, there were expectations of success. But for Venezuelans, there were dreams. a ninth-inning double to take the lead, and then down to the final out. In Caracas, Venezuela, an entire nation waited. Then an explosion of joy. To witness history, she says, it's national pride, something that will last forever. Baseball has often been an escape in Venezuela. Under the brutal regime of Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro, the country suffered repression and poverty. But from Luis Aparicio to Miguel Cabrera, Venezuela has always produced great ball players. And now Andres Jimenez, a Blue Jays star, and his teammates are bringing home a world title. Venezuelans in small towns, said catcher Salvador Perez, watching on black and white TVs, were here with us in our hearts. The tournament shows baseball's popularity is spreading. Japan now rivals America. Italy, a Cinderella team. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and the enthusiasm of the Dominicans. It's especially in Latin America that the game means so much for many who do not have much.
If it's not a step forward, which we hope it will be, I think it's a very emotional time for Venezuela.
Canada, too, had its best showing, making the quarterfinals for the first time, with a starting lineup entirely of major leaguers, also a first.
When you put on the jersey of your country and, you're playing against another nation and the anthems are being played and the crowd is patriotic and on both sides, it's different. I think it really does motivate, young children to want to sign up, play baseball.
But this night belonged to Venezuela, the players singing their national anthem and fans dancing through the night. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
And that is Global National for this Wednesday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is this woodpecker in Ferguson Falls, Ontario. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.